And go live. Yay, cool. All right, cool. Okay, everybody, so today it's our study group time. So if you're tuning in or you're coming on for a free reading or for a personal reading, that was the last hour. So this is our study group time. We are doing Conversations with God by Neil Donald Walsh. So that's what we will be talking about. So everything that I do is going to center around the book. So if you are tuning in and you want to follow along with the study material, feel free to do so. If you have your own book, great. I'm actually on page 159. So I'm on 159 of Conversations with God by Neil Donald Walsh, book 1. So follow along if you want. You don't need the book to follow along. I'm going to read it out and, comment and give my commentary on things. If you do want to ask me some questions, they have to pertain to the material. So they either have to be, they have to pertain to the study material, which is the Conversations with God material, or they can pertain to spiritual matters and spiritual things. So you can ask me about that, but it has to be about that. No personal questions, guys. If you are on Instagram, if you're on YouTube and on Facebook, y'all might get hit by trolls just because trolls like to pop up in there and they will ask you to private message them or DM them because they want to give you readings, but they're going to try to take your money. So be careful about that. There may also be some asses that show up in Instagram or Facebook because there are a lot of people for some reason the hate groups or the people who are haters are starting to pop up a little more than usual. So I'm noticing sometimes there will be a person in the live on Facebook or YouTube that will pop out me and then they'll pop out. I'm like, okay, what was the point? What's the point, y'all? What's the end goal? I don't understand what's the point of that. So it doesn't make any sense to me. But yeah, so anything that you want to ask me about the study material, you can feel free to post those questions in the comment section below, but they have to be study material or spiritually minded questions. No personal questions, no questions about loved ones in spirit, no personal readings. I'm not doing that this hour, guys. Sorry, that was the last hour. All right, so let's get started here. See who's in there. Hey, everybody. Hello. Hello. Woof, woof, what's up? Hey, Simran. Oh, got some friends up in here. I just want to see, can you show what book you read? Yeah, this is here. It's Simran. This is Conversation. It doesn't have the cover because I took the cover off, but yeah, here you see so I took the cover off, the protective cover, because I'm like, I don't need a protective cover. And then, because I like, seeing the cover of books, and I took the book and I put it in my desk and I was trying to squeeze my desk closed and it smudged all this black crap on the front of the book. And I was like, well, that would have been what the freaking cover would have protected against. So I had to I took some water and I wiped it down and everything, but now it's got these little flaky things in it. So that's okay. I'm like, it's fine. I'm not going to die if my book looks old. So, all right. So, page 159. I'm gonna repeat what God was saying in the last part. So this is a conversation between God and Neil Donald Walsh. Whenever I am speaking God's part, I will say God and read the part, and then if I'm speaking Neil's part, I will say Neil and then read the part. Okay. Let's see. God. In this way, the cycle of creation and experience, imagining and fulfilling, knowing and growing into the unknown continues both now and even forevermore. Neil. Woo. God. Yes, exactly. Oh, and there's much more to explain. So much more, but never ever in one book, nor probably even in one lifetime. Yet you have begun, and that is good. Just remember this. It is as your grand teacher William Shakespeare said, there are more things in heaven and earth, Horatio, than are dreamt of in your philosophy. Neil, may I ask you some questions about this? Like, when you say the mind goes with me after death, does that mean my personality goes with me? Will I know in the afterlife who I was? God, yes, and who you have ever been. It will all be opened onto you, because then it will profit you to know. Now, in this moment, it will not. Neil. And with regard to this life, will there be an accounting, a review, a tally taking? God, there is no judgment in what you call the afterlife. You will not even be allowed to judge yourself, for you would surely give yourself a low score, given how judgmental and unforgiving you are with yourself in this life. No, there is no accounting, no one giving thumbs up or thumbs down. Only humans are judgmental, and because you are, you assume that I must be. Yet I am not, and that is a great truth you cannot accept. Nonetheless, while there will be no judgment in the afterlife, there will be opportunity to look again at all you have thought, said, and done here, and to decide if that is what you would choose again, based on who you say you are and who you want to be. Neil. There is an Eastern mystical teaching surrounding a doctrine called Kamaloka. According to this teaching, at the time of our death, each person is given the opportunity to relive every thought ever entertained, every word ever spoken, every action ever taken, not from our standpoint, but from the standpoint of every other person affected. In other words, we're already experienced what we felt, thinking, saying, and doing what we did. Now we're given the experience of feeling what the other person felt in each of these moments. And it is by this measure that we'll decide whether we'll think, say, or do those things again. Any comment? God. What occurs in your life after this is far too extraordinary to describe here in terms you could comprehend. Because the experience is other dimensional and literally defies description using tools as severely limited as words, it is enough to say that you will have the opportunity to review again this, your present life, without pain or fear or judgment, for the purpose of deciding how you feel about your experience here and where you want to go from there. Many of you will decide to come back here, to return to this world of destiny and relativity for another chance to experience out the decisions and choices you make about yourself at this level. Others of you, a select few, will return with a different mission. You will return to destiny and matter for the sole purpose of bringing others out of density and matter. Always there are on the earth those among you who have made such a choice. You can tell them apart at once. Their work is finished. They have returned to earth simply and merely to help others. This is their joy. This is their exaltation. They seek not but to be of service. You cannot miss these people. They are everywhere. There are more of them than you think. Chances are you know one or know of one. Neil, am I one? God, no, if you have to ask, you know you are not one. One such as this asks questions of no one. There is nothing to ask. You, my son, in this lifetime are a messenger, a harbinger, a bringer of news, a seeker and frequently a speaker of truth. That is enough for one lifetime. Be happy. God, Neil. I am, but I can always hope for more. God, yes, and you will. Always you will hope for more. It is in your nature. It is divine nature to seek always to be more. So seek, yes, by all means seek. Now I want to answer definitively the question with which you started this segment of your ongoing conversation. Go ahead and do what you really love to do. Do nothing else. You have so little time. How can you think of wasting a moment doing something for a living you don't like to do? What kind of a living is that? That is not a living, that is a dying. If you say, but, I have others who depend on me, little mouths to feed, a spouse who is looking to me, I will answer. If you insist that your life is about what your body is doing, you do not understand why you came here. At least do something that pleases you, that speaks of who you are. Then at least you can stay out of resentment and anger toward those you imagine are keeping you from your joy. What your body is doing is not to be discounted, but not in the way that you think. The actions of the body were meant to be reflections of a state of being, not attempts to attain a state of being. In the true order of things, one does not do something in order to be happy. One is happy and hence does something. One does not do some things in order to be compassionate. One is compassionate and hence acts in a certain way. The soul's decision precedes the body's action in a highly conscious person. Only an unconscious person attempts to produce a state of soul through something the body is doing. This is what is meant by the statement, your life is not about what your body is doing. Yet it is true that what your body is doing is a reflection of what your life is about. It is another divine dichotomy. Yet know this, if you understand nothing else, you have a right to your joy. Children or no children, spouse or no spouse, seek it, find it, and you will have a joyful family, no matter how much money you make or don't make. And if they aren't joyful and they get up and leave you, then release them with love to seek their joy. If, on the other hand, you have evolved to the point where things of the body are not of concern to you, then you are even more free to seek your joy, on earth as it is in heaven. God says it's okay to be happy, yet yes, even happy in your work. Your life is work, is a statement of who you are. If it is not, then why are you doing it? Do you imagine that you have to? You don't have to do anything. If man who supports his family at all costs, even his own happiness, is who you are, then love your work, because it is facilitating your creation of a living statement of self. If women who works at jobs she hates, in order to meet responsibilities as she sees them, is who you are, then love your job. I don't get what you just said. Wait, I'm going to rewind it because I want to repeat what just said there. If a woman who works at a job she hates in order to meet responsibilities as she sees them is who you are, then love your job. For it totally supports your self-image, your self-concept. Everyone can love everything the moment they understand what they are doing and why. No one does anything he doesn't want to do. Neil, how can I solve some of the health problems I face? I have been the victim of enough chronic problems to last 3 lifetimes. Why am I having them all now, in this lifetime? God, first, let's get one thing straight. You love them, most of them, anyway. You've used them admirably to feel sorry for yourself and to get attention for yourself. On the few occasions when you haven't loved them, it's only because they've gone too far, farther than you thought they ever would when you created them. Now let's understand what you probably already knew. All illness is self-created. Even conventional medical doctors are now seeing how people make themselves sick. Most people do so quite unconsciously. They don't even know what they're doing. So when they get sick, they don't know what hit them. It feels as though something has befallen them, rather than they did something to themselves. This occurs because most people move through life, not simply health issues and consequences, unconsciously. People smoke and wonder why they get cancer. People ingest animals and fat and wonder why they get blocked arteries. People stay angry all their lives and wonder why they get heart attacks. People compete with other people mercilessly and under incredible stress and wonder why they have strokes. The not so obvious truth is that most people worry themselves to death. Worry is just about the worst form of mental activity there is next to hate, which is deeply self-destructive. Worry is pointless. It is wasted mental energy. It also creates biochemical reactions which harm the body, producing everything from indigestion to coronary arrest and a multitude of things in between. Health will improve almost at once when worrying ends. Worry is the activity of a mind which does not understand its connection with me. Hatred is the most severely damaging mental condition. It poisons the body, and its effects are virtually irreversible. Fear is the opposite of everything you are, and so has an effect of opposition to your mental and physical health. Fear is worry magnified. Worry, hate, fear, together with their offshoots, anxiety, bitterness, impatience, avarice, unkindness, judgmentalness, and condemnation, all attack the body at the cellular level. It is impossible to have a healthy body under these conditions. Similarly, although to a somewhat lesser degree, conceit, self-indulgence, and greed lead to physical illness or lack of well-being. All illness is created in the mind first. Neil, how can that be? What of the conditions contracted from another? Colds, or for that matter, AIDS? God, nothing occurs in your life, nothing which is not first a thought. Thoughts are like magnets, drawing effects to you. The thought may not always be obvious, and thus clearly causative, as in, I'm going to contract a terrible disease. The thought may be, and usually is, far more subtle than that. I am not worthy to live. My life is always a mess. I am a loser. God is going to punish me. I am sick and tired of my life. Thoughts are very subtle, yet extremely powerful form of energy. Words are less subtle, more dense. Actions are the most dense of all. Action is energy in heavy physical form, in heavy motion. When you think, say, and act out a negative concept such as, I am a loser, you place tremendous creative energy into motion. Small wonder you come down with a cold. That would be the least of it. It is very difficult to reverse the effects of negative thinking once they have taken physical form. Not impossible, but very difficult. It takes an act of extreme faith. It requires an extraordinary belief in the positive force of the universe. It is very difficult to reverse the effects of negative thinking once they have taken physical form. Not impossible, but very difficult. It takes an act of extreme faith. It requires an extraordinary belief in the positive force of the universe. Whether you call that God, goddess, the unmoved mover, prime force, first cause, or whatever, healers have just such faith. It is a faith that crosses over into absolute knowing. They know that you are meant to be whole, complete, and perfect in this moment now. This knowingness is also a thought, and a very powerful one. It has the power to move mountains, to say nothing of molecules in your body. That is why healers can heal, often even at a distance. Thought knows no distance. Thought travels around the world and traverses the universe faster than you can say the word. Say but the word, and my servant shall be healed. And it was so in that self-same hour, even before his sentence was finished. Such was the faith of the centurion. Yet you are all mental lepers. Your mind is eaten away with negative thoughts. Some of these are thrust upon you. Many of these you actually make up, conjure up yourselves, and then harbor and entertain for hours, days, weeks, months, even years. And you wonder why you are sick. You can solve some of your health problems, as you put it, by solving the problems in your thinking. Yes, you can heal some of the conditions you have already acquired, giving yourself, as well as prevent major new problems from developing. And you can do this all by changing your thinking. Also, I hate to suggest this because it sounds so mundane, coming as it were from God, but for God's sake, take better care of yourself. You take rotten care of your body, paying it little attention at all until you suspect something's going wrong with it. You do virtually nothing in the way of preventative maintenance. You take better care of your car than you do your own body. And that's not saying much. Not only do you fail to prevent breakdowns with regular checkups, once a year physicals, and use of the therapies and medicines you've been given, why do you go to the doctor, get her help, then not use the remedies she suggests? Can you answer me that one? You also mistreat your body terribly between these visits, about which you do nothing. You do not exercise it, so it grows flabby, and worse yet, weak for non-use. You do not nourish it properly, thereby weakening it further. Then you fill it with toxins and poisons and the most absurd substances, posing as food. And still it runs for you, this marvelous engine. Still it chugs along, bravely pushing on in the face of this onslaught. It's horrible. The conditions under which you ask your body to survive are horrible, but you will do little or nothing about them. You will read this, nod your head in regretful agreement, and go right back to the mistreatment. And do you know why? Neil, I'm afraid to ask. God, because you have no will to live. Neil, that sounds a harsh indictment. God, it's not meant to be harsh, nor is it meant to be an indictment. Harsh is a relative term, a judgment you have laid on the words. Indictment connotes guilt and never heard the word before. Connotes guilt, and guilt connotes wrongdoing. There is no wrongdoing involved here, hence no guilt and no indictment. I have made a simple statement of truth. Like all statements of truth, it has the quality of waking you up. Some people don't like to be awakened. Most do not. Most would rather sleep. The word is in the condition that it's in because the world is full of sleepwalkers. With regard to my statement, what about it seems untrue? You have no will to live. At least you have had none until now. If you tell me you've had an instant conversion, I will reassess my prediction of what you will now do. I acknowledge that my prediction is based on past experience. It was also meant to wake you up. Sometimes when a person is really deeply asleep, you have to shake him a little. I have seen in the past that you have had little will to live. Now you may deny that, but in this case your actions speak louder than your words. If you ever lit a cigarette in your life, much less smoked a pack a day for 20 years as you have very little will to live. You don't care about what you do to your body. Neil, but I stopped smoking over 10 years ago. God, only after 20 years of grueling physical punishment. And if you've ever taken alcohol into your body, you have very little will to live. Neil, I drink very moderately. God, the body was not meant to intake alcohol. It impairs the mind. Neil, but Jesus took alcohol. He went to the wedding and turned water into wine. God, so who said Jesus was perfect? Neil, oh, for God's sake. God, say, are you becoming annoyed with me? Neil, well, far be it from me to become annoyed with God. I mean, that would be a bit presumptuous, wouldn't it? But I do think we can carry all this a bit too far. My father taught me all things in moderation. I think I've stuck to that where alcohol is concerned. God, the body can more easily recover only moderate abuse. The saying is therefore useful. Nevertheless, I'll stick to my original statement. The body was not meant to intake alcohol. Neil, but even some medicines contain alcohol. God, I have no control over what you call medicine. I'll stay with my statement. Neil, you really are rigid, aren't you? God, look, truth is truth. Now, if someone said a little alcohol won't hurt you and placed that statement in the context of life as you now live it, I would have to agree with them. That does not change the truth of what I've said. It simply allows you to ignore it. Yet consider this. Currently, you humans wear your bodies out, typically within 50 to 80 years. Some last longer, but not many. Some stop functioning sooner, but not the majority. Can we agree on that? Neil, yes, okay. God, all right. So we have a good starting point for discussion. Now, when I said I could agree with the statement, a little alcohol won't hurt you, I qualified that by adding, in the context of life as you now live it. You see, you people seem satisfied with life as you now live it. But life, it may surprise you to learn, was meant to be lived a whole different way, and your body was designed to last a great deal longer. Neil, it was? God, yes. Neil, how much longer? Neil, infinitely longer. Neil, what does that mean? God, it means, my son, your body was designed to last forever. Neil, forever? God, yes, read that, forevermore. Neil, you mean we are never supposed to die? God, you never do die. Life is eternal. You are immortal. You never do die. You simply change form. You didn't even have to do that. You decided to do that. I didn't. I made your bodies that would last forever. Do you really think the best God could do, the best I could come up with, was a body that could make it 60, 70, maybe 80 years before falling apart? Do you imagine the limit of my ability? Neil, I never thought of putting it that way exactly. God, I designed your magnificent body to last forever. And the earliest of you did live in the body virtually pain-free and without fear of what you now call death. In your religious mythology, you symbolize your cellular memory of these first version humans by calling them Adam and Eve. Actually, of course, there were more than two. At the outset, the idea was for you wonderful souls to have a chance to know yourselves as who you really are through experiences gained in the physical body, in the relative world, as I have explained repeatedly here. This was done through the slowing down of the unfathomable speed of all vibration, thought form, to produce matter, including that matter you call physical body. Life evolved through a series of steps in the blink of an eye that you now call billions of years. And in this holy instant came you, out of the sea, the water of life, onto the land and onto the form you now hold. All right, so I'm going to stop it there because that's enough. All right, so let's stop there. Let's talk about that and let me go over some of your questions about the material or just the questions, spiritual questions, if you want to ask them. Yeah, there's like, I always wondered that. I was like, why was the body designed the way it is? And what really triggers, one person's body? Let's say if all bodies were made equally, which they're not intentionally, but if all bodies were made equally, what causes one body to outlast another, et cetera, et cetera. I know of people who were very much, like health freaks, like they took care of their bodies and they were obsessive about it, and they died like young from a random thing that happened health-wise, like a heart defect or whatnot, something they couldn't plan for. And you have to wonder, like, if they're going through all this trouble trying to be healthy or trying to have healthy bodies, and then life throws this at them, how is that okay? That's not okay. They were working really hard to have healthy bodies. But you also have to take, oh shit, my shit's all falling over here. You always have to take into account that destiny, fate, we all come into this reality with a soul agenda, a soul SOUL agenda, and a soul SOLE agenda. A soul SOUL agenda because we are so, from this experience, from this unique perspective of me, Ferny, my soul is able to get a lot of information through the different moments and experiences and engagements with people. So there's a lot there that my soul is gaining from this experience. At the same time, my soul agenda is what I am here to experience and to live through. So there are themes and ideas or opportunities of experience that are programmed into this lifetime for myself. So it doesn't matter what I do. There are certain things I can't escape. I'm going to have to go through it because it's part of my soul agenda as a human in this form. But my soul agenda, SOUL, is gaining from those moments. And so even if it's uncomfortable or it's a period of suffering for me or it's a struggle in this body, it's what I got to go through. It's what we all got to go through. No human can avoid suffering in any shape, way, or form if they exist in this reality. It's just not going to happen. So you either accept that that's a part of the chemistry of this reality, it's a part of the equation, and then try to do as much as you can to control it, which is what most people tend to do. Most of us we try to control life in various ways, which doesn't work for us. May give us a sense of control or give us the idea that we've got things under control, but it's not sustainable. Or we basically accept the reality of this world, life, but we still choose intentionally who we will be every opportunity we get. When we are going through unique experiences that are part of our soul's agenda, we can't escape that experience. It's something we're going to go through. But get through it, power through it, or get through it as best as you can. And if you can't get through it, then do whatever you can to just survive it. And then come out of it if you can. But those are those moments and those experiences that are programmed in. There's just some avoidable things and tragedies and suffering that we're gonna have. But we as humans have a tendency of amplifying our own suffering. We increase our own pain because we do not understand suffering. We do not understand this reality. We do not understand what's important here. What's important is not the latest bag from Prada or, having the next best game. Like, those are not important. Those are joys. Those are things that people enjoy. There's nothing wrong with having passions and joy. But if you give into a cultural mindset that the most important thing for you is to get the latest rims or to be popular or to be well known or to be famous or to be a chosen one or to whatever, then that's stuck in a perspective and a way of existing that isn't really going to make you happy. My uncle taught me this a long time ago because in my family, again, coming from a background where we were dirt poor. I mean, I was dirt poor. Most of my family, we grew up in the hood. We were poor. I did have one uncle. He was a doctor who lived in San Antonio, and he actually separated himself from the family by doing that. And I understand now why, but he basically created his own little worlds in San Antonio. And so he lived his life the way he wanted to. And he worked 7 days. He worked 6 days a week. He worked every Saturday. I hardly ever saw him when I was in San Antonio except on Sundays or early in the mornings or late in the evenings because he spent all his time working at a clinic and serving the underserved, serving people who couldn't afford insurance, who didn't have insurance, who needed help. And so every time you would go to his office, there was just a crowd of people sitting in there and he would see them. That's all he spent his time doing. But he was also a very successful doctor as well. He did a lot of things and was living a very good life. And so whenever we would get a chance to visit with him during the summer times, because he had a pool, everybody would drive over there and he would throw these big, his whole driveway, he had the driveway turned into a rodeo. He had tents, he had straw, hay, he had horses there. I mean, literally, this is this is in a city in a nice part of town where it's a very suburb-like community. So to turn your driveway into a freaking rodeo, but that's what he would do. I think he did it for the tax write-offs because if you hold events and stuff, you could write it off as a tax incentive. I think that's what he did. But he taught me a long time ago when I was young. He said, don't think that money makes you happy. Money doesn't make you happy. Money has not added to my happiness. And so he says, it's the work that you do. It's what you care about. That's where your happiness will come from. Money is nothing. He was a very wise person, actually. He said, I don't know why people care so much about what race you are. It doesn't matter because in the future, everyone's going to be the same race because everyone's going to intermix. So it's ridiculous to fight over race now. In his mind, he just had very futuristic, very progressive ideas for a Hispanic Catholic back in that day. So for me, it was wow, he's very progressive in his thinking, which makes sense in comparison to the rest of my family who didn't understand those things. But he was right. And I learned that as I got older and as I began to do better for myself, as I began to get a handle of my financial situation, as I began to not have to freak out over going to the grocery store and paying for, food and worry that I wasn't going to have enough. When I got to that point in my life and that was a norm for me, I realized that money isn't really happiness. Money is a resource. It's a tool. It's not the end goal. And so people who spend their lives, those of us who spend our lives fixated on more money, more money, more money, I can guarantee it's not going to fix anything. You might think it is, but people who earn more money tend to spend more money and tend to get back into the same cycle all over again. I know people who are millionaires and have to always transfer money back and forth and have to always borrow money from this or from that because they don't just have it in hand. It's always tied up or they're always overspent on something. So they have to borrow from, this to pay for that. So these people are not happy and they're very, very shallow living perspectives. And so they're not happy people. So money is not going to bring you happiness. It makes it easier for people to have resources that they need. But let me ask you this, and this is the question that I would like for some of you to answer. If you didn't have to worry about your home, if you didn't have to worry about your medical care, if you didn't have to worry about your food, and if you didn't have to worry about just basic level comforts, and you get to choose what you want to do in this world with your life and your time, what would you do? Most people, if you're tired, like myself, for years I was just grueling at it at Starbucks. But the first thoughts I had was, I want to take a long ass vacation. I don't want to do nothing. I just want to chill and relax and do nothing. And so that's great, but then you're going to get bored, or you're going to be like, okay, I've had enough of this crap. I need to do something with myself. And so that's what I discovered, is when I got to that level of comfort, I was like, okay, that's enough of that crap. What can I do? Like, what do I need to do in this world? And then it shifts you, it changes you. And so I'd like for some of you to answer that question. If you had those basic needs met, and you had the opportunity to do work or to do something that you enjoyed, and you'd already taken a year off of vacation doing absolutely nothing and being a lazy bum, playing all the games you want, being high or being, drunk as much as whatever, eating whatever you want, traveling wherever, you're done, year's over. Now you get to choose what you want to do with the rest of your life. What would you choose? What would you do? That's the thing that most people who are stuck in a cyclical pattern of, I need to earn more money, or I need to have a relationship and not be alone, or I'm not successful and everybody else has these same things, so I have to have these same things to be successful. When you're in that pattern thinking, that's all you end up doing is repeating the same pattern. You don't really produce those things. You just continue to repeat the opportunities to think those things. That's all you're going to do, because you're not shifting, you're not changing. It actually wasn't until I asked myself, like, what would I do with my time if I didn't have to suffer and work and push myself as hard as I was, especially when I was working at Starbucks and I was also doing this part-time. And I started to wonder what I would do. And I actually forced myself on my free days or on my days off, instead of just being in bed and watching Netflix all day, I started to incorporate or do some activities that aligned with that type of lifestyle. And as I did more of it, more opportunities for me to do those things came up for me that I didn't have to pay for. So I was able to experience things without having to cover the cost of it, because it was offered to me. And so there was a shift and a change that started to happen. And as that happened, it allowed me even more freedom in my mind to think about different things that I hadn't considered before. And it's just a progressive change in all of that. So it's more about, this is why I tell people, if you want change in your life, you must change. You can't wait for change to show up. You must be the change in this world for you to see the change you desire. And if you are wanting something from others, offer it first. Offer it first. Offer it first in any way, shape, or form. Well, Ferny, I don't have money, so I can't offer anybody money. Well, can you offer $1 to a person who's homeless on the street who needs the meal? That's someone who's in a way worse position than you, and you're in a position where you obviously can think about offering that. So $1 can help them. Can you buy a bunch of bread and lunch meat and make a bunch of sandwiches and go hand it out to people who are hungry? I would some people would like free lunch. You don't even have to do it for people who are homeless. You can do it for people who you work with. You can make just a bunch of little kids and just make good things for people that you enjoy. If you want to be a cook, stop waiting for you to get into the cordon bleu in Europe, and then get your ass in the kitchen and make a bunch of mini quiches for the people at work, and then make food for them. This is why I love the movie Under the Tuscan Sun so much, because in the movie, she after a catastrophic divorce and losing everything or giving up everything, she decides, screw it, I'm just going to take this trip to Tuscany and just go. And this is one of my absolute favorite movies, by the way. It's one of my best favorite movies. But she took her butt to Tuscany, and when she got there, she just started to operate off of intuition and instinct. And she made crazy decisions that a rational person would not make. But when you're living every day, suffering from what you do and from who you are, I don't consider that very rational. So in my mind, making a drastic change that is also irrational but offers a chance for change, I would say is the way to go, which is what I was able to do for myself, which is why I can speak on that. So she moved there, bought a house. It all just kind of lined itself up. And then she was trying to replicate the idea of success again. Oh, I want a relationship, or I want this, or I want my book. She was trying to replicate in this big shooken up reality of hers, trying to replicate some of those ideas for success or a value in life, or what will make you happy. And so she frustrated the hell out of herself, and she got stuck because she was back in the same state of suffering. And she was like, what do I have to do? What do I have to do to just make everything different? And it wasn't until she started to pay attention and realize that life is not going to show up exactly how you expect it. When you are a conditioned human being, you perceive the future, you perceive your dreams and goals from a limited perspective of conditioned being. It isn't what the grander version of you, God, soul, source, is desiring of that life. So once you accept that there's some things in this world I'm going to experience, I got to just do what I have to do and get through it, and then allow for freedom of expansion and expression beyond those moments, and just like have fun or do the best you can or make the best of it. Then go for that, do it, be it, because why not? I envy these people, and I love this generation of kids who are like, I'm going to get in my van and I'm going to go out and travel around and see the countryside, and I'm going to work in different places, and and I mean that's awesome. Like, I love that. I don't want to do that, but that's awesome because it's a very courageous to do, and it's a very different way of living. So you don't have to live by the traditional standards that we've all been conditioned and we've been fooled into thinking that are going to bring us success and love and happiness, because it may not. It may not. And if you're going off of an idea and off of a belief, but you don't actually have experience to support that that's going to make you happy, then you might be taking a gamble and wasting your time doing something that you're honestly not even going to get anything out of personally. So, let me buzz around here. Oh, so this is Simran's sister. She talks about how much she loves you a lot. Oh, thank you, sweetheart. I appreciate that. Let's see. Rosalie says, wow, I'm a guilty one. I needed to hear this. I vow to do better at taking care of my health. It's got to be a balance. I am not trying to live. I used to have a goal where I wanted to live to like 100 and something. I don't have that goal anymore. I don't really want to do that. I just want to be like, let me get what I need to get done here. Let me do what I'm going to do, and then I'm out. Like, I'm out. I don't want to get to the point where I have to depend on anybody, just because I've just seen enough. I've talked to enough people. I've gone through enough. Like, I know, like, I've done enough in this lifetime. I've lived enough life for more than one person. So I mean, that doesn't mean I'm going to take care of myself. I take care of myself to the best of my abilities. So I try not to eat a lot of refined things. I try to eat more naturally. I try to reduce the amount of meat and animal products that I take into my body. I try to eat sustainable or sustainably, but I'm still human and I'm Hispanic, and I was raised on barbacoa, menudo. I was raised on all the greatest things to eat. But I understand also that there's an offset to that. And I do feel a lot of pain when I see an animal suffer. So I have to be very conscious of when I'm going to eat something and when I'm not going to eat something. And I also ask for forgiveness from the animal if I do eat something, just because I know that it had to endure something. And then the way that our society is set up with the places where they butcher animals and they torture them, or they keep them locked in pens for years, like if I start to think, I start to hate myself, because once I start to think that way, I'm like, I start to hate who I am. I hate humanity, because we've done this to them, and we've done this to ourselves. And when I'm like sitting next to my mama cat and I look into her eyes and I see a being there, I see a loving being in her eyes, and I know that she does not deserve to suffer. To think that I am contributing to a society that has produced an entire industry around the suffering of animals. It's one thing if you're going to have, if you're going to do it in a way that is respectful and that is with the least amount of suffering, but that's not the culture we have. That's not the way we set up our meat industry. So yeah, Cassidy's like, I really like my wine and vape. Oh man. Yeah, I can't. I love, and I'm a vapor too, so that's my thing. The thing about it is, wine, like, I like the taste of wine, but it gives me indigestion like no one's business, and I prefer sweeter wines than I'm like such a girl in many ways. And when I say girl, I don't mean to be derogatory, like girls are not strong or tough. In fact, quite the opposite. If you know me, you'll know that I think women are the most powerful creatures on this planet. personally. That's just the way I feel. So I'm grateful to have been raised by women because they taught me so much. But when I say like being a girl, it's just a figure of speech. It's meaning that like I like sweeter, more like delicious like things. I don't just want to have something that's like hardcore gonna hit me hard. Like no, except for Long Island iced teas. I love Long Island iced teas. That's what I used to drink back when I was a clubber or used to go to the clubs. But I love Long Island iced tea. But I would only take one because it only takes one. It's like the most alcoholic drink you can think of. But I don't drink though. That's the thing. Like I don't really drink. But if I am going to drink, it's either like a Gentleman's Jack and Diet Coke, or it's a Long Island iced tea, or something that's got like a lot of flavor and sweetness to it. But yeah, like and I do like wines, but I prefer like the colder, sweeter wines. I actually prefer white wines over red wines, but. This is Cassidy. My mom was a vegan and mental health therapist and didn't drink or smoke and died of cancer. So I have mixed feelings. We all have our time up. Yeah, that's the thing. My sister's fiance, she was very much like myself. She was very much into spirituality, into holistic, into health and healing. And she was a vegetarian, and the father was a meat eater. And he's more like redneck, like, I'm going to make, that's that. The father, the mother was more like myself. So it's an interesting combination there. But she died of cancer. And so she always cared about what they ate and always forced them to eat healthier. And she died of cancer. And so after that, my sister's fiance, he said he didn't care to eat healthy because it didn't save her and it didn't keep her from dying young. Now, every person's situation is different, and there are lots of variables and things to take into account. Doesn't mean you shouldn't try to take care of your body, because if you mistreat your body, you will regret mistreating your body. It's going to come after you, and you're going to have to pay for it. But I just try to have it all in balance, because for me, it's a balance thing. It's like, I'm here, I'm in a physical body, I'm going to enjoy this life and what it offers me, but I'm not going to go I'm not going to be like Girls Gone Wild, where I'm just going to be full of like bunch of foolery and craziness. So oh, thank you, Red Robin. Yeah, I want to do more. I want to do more of the Payback Friday. So like the Fridays, and for those of you who don't know what it is, and I'm going to repeat it here, every Friday I am trying to set the example and trying to push people and to motivate people to donate. And most people, on Fridays, people get paid. So I call it the payday challenge. And it can be starting at 15. 10 is like nothing. Like do 15. 15 is at least a noble gesture. So 15, 20, 25, whatever you can afford. Yes, if you can only afford 10, do it. I don't care. Don't listen to my stupid ass. Like, just do it anyways, just because it's helping someone and it's just something to help another person. It's $1 a person. If it's $1 to a homeless person who needs money, or someone who needs a buck, so be it. If it's pay it forward, someone in line, so be it. It doesn't matter. But practice compassion, practice charity, practice giving, practice offering to the world. Practice being who you wish you could be in this world and have return to you. In other words, if you want a more compassionate, giving world, if you want the government to give you a paycheck, if you want the government to give you free health benefits, if you want something in this world, then turn yourself into someone that gives it and offers it in return. But don't wait for it to be given. Just give. Because if you get enough people giving, if you get 1 million people to give every Friday $25 of their paycheck, that's a wave of change. That is a huge shift in the mindset of humanity and of who we are as people. If you get enough people contributing or cooperating with each other to achieve a goal to benefit others, you get a lot of good things in this world. So it starts with each and every one of us, and we cannot point the finger at others until we hold ourselves accountable. I don't have the right to speak about any other person until I hold myself accountable and I do exactly what I criticize others of not doing. So I have to hold myself accountable. And so for me, every Friday I donate, I show my receipt, not because I want you to praise me, but because I want you to feel pressured into pushing yourself towards that, or feel, well, he just did 25. I can do 25, And I mean, people like to go eat out. A few drinks can cost $25. So And with the cost of inflation these days, I think that people can afford $20 to donate to a women's organization, or an organization that helps with abused women or animals in the shelters or whatever. So, and I list them. You can choose one of those, or you can decide to choose one for yourself, but just donate and then share that. People will automatically assume that you're posting this thing, you're posting a receipt that you donated money because you want attention or you want to be praised. Fuck it. Like, screw that. Post the damn receipt. Post the instructions. Get people to do the same thing. You don't have to ask for praise. Just post, this is what I donated to. This is my reasons why. And this is why you should too. That's it. That's it. So if people want to praise you, they can praise you. That's not what it's about. It's about you changing the energy of this world, starting with yourself. Yes, I am Texas. I'm homebred, native Texan. You'll hear me say y'all like in everything that I do. And I'm like very Texas bred through and through. But Houston, I was born in the inner city, in the hood on the east side. So that's where I'm from in Texas. But I have cousins who lived out in like they lived out in the outskirts, and so we'd always go out and see them. And they were like like real burly, thicker, manly men, or they were considered men because they were bigger guys. They burned their trash because the trash didn't go out that way. So they eat some more food, put some hair on your chest, like that kind of. So I have a mix of different family from different backgrounds. But big family. It is. Diversity is the beauty in life. I actually, that's something that was shared with me. I did, I think last week or the week before that, it was my day off, and I felt Aja calling me. So for those of you who don't know who Aja is my soul. Aja is my highest self. You can call it my superconscious. So there's God or source. Then there's me, and the thing in between, the bridge, the connecting piece for myself so I can grasp more, is Aja, my higher self, my soul. And whenever I am being summoned, I have to listen. And I actually haven't channeled with Aja in a while, just because, sometimes I get things randomly throughout the day. So it's not like I'm having the need to have all these long conversations. I'll just get something and I'll write it down. But this was specifically being summoned, and I was watching Star Trek on TV, and it was my day off. And Aja was like, we need you to scribe, we need you to write what we have to say. And I was like, I don't feel like it right now. I feel like watching. I just want to watch TV. I don't really want to do. And then it's like, we need your assistance. We need you to scribe. I was like, okay. So I got up, I went over, and they said, they didn't even want me to type it. I was like, let me type it. I can type it out faster. And they're like, we need you to write it out with a pen and paper. I was like, oh my God, like we're going old school with cursive. Okay, let me get freaking pen and paper. So I took it out, and then I wrote everything they wanted me to write. And it took me an hour to finish scribing what they wanted me to write. So I then I took that, and then I had to go back and type it out. That's how crazy, right? It's just crazy. Like, why couldn't I just type it out in the first place? So I went back and typed it out, and then I just shared it this morning. It was the letter of resolution is what they had me type out. So I was like, okay, this is what I'm typing out. But they've got more coming, because in my third book that I do, which is going to be about spirituality, that's going to be it's going to incorporate some of Aja's stuff. And then we're going to have a book dedicated to Aja, because and everybody has a soul that has a name, by the way. Yeah, Lizzie, I just learned an hour ago that my neighbor passed away in December. I wanted to cry, but didn't, because I know he has just changed his state of being. It still hurt, but I know he is not suffering anymore. Yeah, last year we lost a lot of people connected to the family, or in the family. There's 7, but my count was 7. And so there were a lot of people that passed. And, people always say, oh, well, it's a coincidence. Like, yeah, we didn't have people pass in the last 5 years, and then all of a sudden in 1 year, 7 people die because of a random health event that is not an actual virus and is like a fake thing. Like, okay, right, people, let's like stick to reality. Even like earlier, like I have a person that I know who I was telling them, like, any person that comes for me at this point and tries to dismiss or tries to give me some bullshit about a fake virus, or that there's nothing that actually happened and all this conspiratorial bullshit. Like if someone comes for me with that, they're going to get an energetic face full. So people need to steer clear and not mess with me, because I'm not having it, especially now that I've just gone through another episode and incident with people who have gotten sick. So not having it. And they were like, well, yeah, people are definitely dying. It's really sad. But they would not admit that it was COVID because they just choose to not believe it. So it's ridiculous. I understand. You know, when you do this kind of work, you kind of become desensitized to death. Losing someone to death in itself, for me, isn't as difficult as it is seeing people suffer. Seeing people suffer is a harder thing for me than watching someone pass. I've been there when people have passed, so I know what that process is like. But I also know what it's like when people go through a lot of pain and suffering. And I prefer... I would rather just go than to have to linger and suffer. And so like with my assistant Roxy, who's been in the hospital for the last 2 weeks because of her illness, it's been an interesting experience to say the least, but it's just been really triggering for me in a lot of different ways, because we're actually right around the 30-year anniversary of when my mother had her first schizophrenic episode, had her first psychotic breakdown, and then a schizophrenic episode. And then she just was incoherent and she was hospitalized in an institution for 8 months. So we're right at the anniversary, that 30-year anniversary. And so Roxy, who is someone that is like one of the strongest, one of the most responsible, one of the most coherent persons or people that I know in my life and that I count on, you know, to see her, you know, be this person to all of a sudden just like go through this whole ordeal and her cognitive function be affected because of all the craziness that she had to endure. Like, it's been heartbreaking, and it was like totally PTSD in me because of what I went through with my mom, and seeing my mom degrade, and seeing my mom, you know, freaking out and crying because no one would listen to her because people didn't believe in mental illness. In a Hispanic Catholic family, they thought she was possessed by the devil, so they tried taking her to church to be exorcised. They didn't understand the idea of schizophrenia, and so they wouldn't help her, and she was having these reactions and these muscle spasms because of the medications they were giving her, because they couldn't figure out what was wrong with her. Even the doctors, they were not taking her to specialists or people who were psychiatrists. They were taking her to traditional doctors who were not prepared to deal with that. And so my mom, she was just freaking out, and I remember my aunt and my cousin saying, don't pay any attention to her, you know, she just wants attention. Your mom just wants attention. She's not really sick. And I'm like, her neck is spasming and twisting to the side, and she's staring at me and screaming and begging me to help her because she can't control what's happening to her. And there I am as a child, like 9 or 10 years old, trying to straighten out her head, and I can feel the muscles spasming, and, you know, to be told by family members who don't understand, she's not sick. She just wants attention. Like, you don't understand what people have to go through when they're suffering through certain things. So for me, the idea of suffering is more triggering than it is, you know, someone passing away. But I get it. I totally understand this like sudden shock that you've lost someone and they're gone. That I had that several times last year because of COVID and people who died. That I was like, holy shit, like they're gone. Like they're gone, you know? I love that, Robin. I would help children read. So I am going to challenge you to help children read. And so what I'm going to challenge you to is I'm going to challenge you to find a group of children, or to volunteer a day out of a month, or to get on Instagram or video and record yourself reading something to children. Even if you only have one person tuning in, and even if they're not a child, I don't care. Just do it. Even if you do it, and it's because what will happen is you'll start to shift an energy in yourself, and you'll start to listen to the call within you that is being summoned by source, and it is summoning this within you. And, you know, this might be something that fulfills a past life karma. You know, what if in the past, in one of your prior lifetimes, and this is a psychic hit, in one of your past lifetimes, what if you were responsible for the burning of books? What if you were responsible for the destruction of literature? What if you were responsible for the destruction of a culture or of a race, and you removed all of the material? What if that's what you did in a past life, but in this lifetime you just feel the need to read to children because that seems like something you would enjoy doing? What if there's more to it than that? And in the process of you doing that, or even taking a step in that direction, suddenly you bring about a wave of opportunity for you to share and to teach and to honor this internal conflict that is now being righted within your soul through the experience of this lifetime? What if that's what is happening there? I just heard like a little while ago, there was a facility. I think I'm trying to remember where the facility was. This is a facility here in the States. Where was it? Was it here or was it in Canada? It was in Canada. God, it is in Canada. There's a show in Canada. There was a show that was filmed there called Anna with an E, which is a really good show. It's really sweet. But anyways, Annie with an E or Anna with an E. But they just found an old, and this is not specific to just Canada. This is across the board. I know from a past life that I lived that I was part of the destruction of the native culture. And so it's my job to help write some sort of moral compass for humanity. That's just part of the thing that I'm here to do. But there was it was a church. It was a facility that they would take native children and they would bring them to the facility. They would, chop their hairs off and they would dress them all the same and they would torture them and spank them into Christian thought and into Christian philosophy. And so we just found out that they found 200 or 800 bodies at this facility. They just uncovered this. So all those years that these nuns were running this shit, there were all these children that died. No questions asked. And nobody asked because they were native children. They weren't as valuable as the white kids. So it's, this is the history that we've inherited. This is what we're responsible for. It doesn't matter whether we were here when slavery was the norm. It doesn't matter if we were here when the native culture was, whether us right now that we were there or not. It doesn't matter because we have an obligation and a responsibility to own what we as humans have done on this planet and in this reality. So we're accountable to that. And if we don't take accountability, it is our children and our children's children who will pay the price and we have paid the price of those things that have not been done by our parents and those before them. So we are paying those prices for all of that. We do not need to bestow further suffering in this world on those behind us because we did not want to tackle or deal with the issues today. So yes, Cassidy. All right, so I'm going to challenge you to... So Cassidy says, I would garden and feed as many mouths as I can. I love feeding people. So I have a neighbor who, she makes a lot of vegetables. She grows her own garden. And every year she brings me like a bunch of vegetables, just a bunch of stuff she has extra. So what I would say to you is I challenge you to just grow shit and give it away. That's what I challenge you. It doesn't matter who you give it to. Just grow it and give it away to people who would like it. And grow the things that most people know how to make. Because if you make something like, what is arugula? Like, how do I make arugula? Like, rutabaga or whatever. Just make some common things and then hand them out. Or offer to donate them to a church or to a soup kitchen. You don't have to wait to have this massive garden. Just start doing it now. By working in the calling that is happening, you are going to honor yourself. And you're going to bring about and unmask a huge amount of energy from the universe so that you can do more of it and more of it. It becomes infectious. It becomes contagious to be this way, to do these kinds of things. And it only expands your light and expands the love in this world. It helps us undo some of the anger and hatred. And it helps us to be accountable to our own calling. And that's what this is about. Sheesh cuts. I would like to create jobs for others. So here's what I would suggest. There's two ways you can go about doing this, right? So I once, like back in my house in Houston, I hired a lawn man, and I used to have him cut my grass every 2 weeks. And so he'd come in, he always charged me he charged me like $20 to cut my grass. I'm like, that's a lot of work. And so I would always overpay him because I wanted him to feel, I said, no, I feel like this is a lot more work than that. I'm going to pay you what I think your work is deserving of, because you have great work and great service. And he always appreciated it that way. If I gave it out as a handout, he didn't want it because he wanted to be proud. He didn't want to have to be given a handout. That's just the kind of person that he was. But I always would turn it around and say you have great work. You have such great care. And I don't feel right because I feel like I'm underpaying you. So I'm going to pay you more because you are so good at what you do. And so I would turn it around so that he would take the money. But I would pay the yard guy. And I once remember having a conversation with my cousin, and we were at breakfast, and I just happened to mention to them like that I had a guy who would come around and cut my yard every 2 weeks. And so she was like, and from a poor Hispanic family, like, we're the yardmen. We're the ones who go out and do these jobs that, are really hard work. And so she looked at me and she said, and trust me, I cut plenty of yards. Actually, the uncle that I was talking about earlier, who was the uncle in San Antonio, I would go to his home in the summertime to earn money for the school year. And so I would go and cut his yard, and I would cut all the yard around his clinic and all the yard in his house. And that's a lot of yards. So I cut plenty of yards in my day. But my cousin, she gave me like a judgmental like reaction, and she was like, "You can't cut your own grass? Like, you want to hire someone? Like, you think you're all that? You can't cut your own grass?" And I was like, well, he wants to earn a living, and he wants a job, and he needs a job to support his family. He needs money to pay for his bills. And if this is what he's choosing to do to get that money, then I'm going to do my part and give him a job. So I gave him this job so he can earn the money for his family. That's what I'm doing. And so if I don't have to cut my grass, I don't want to cut my own grass. Like, I don't want to cut it. I have other things that I need to focus on. And doing that would take away time from some of the other things I would rather be doing. And so if he is willing to do it, and he is open, and he needs the money, I'm giving him a job. And so last year, like during the pandemic, my way of like contributing to making things better was I tried to employ as many independent contractors as I could. So I had 5 people that I was employing and paying services for, and specifically every month like clockwork, just because I wanted them to have money. And even if I wasn't using their services or I wasn't using what they were offering, I still wanted them to be on the payroll, just because they needed the money to get through the year, because the pandemic was not an easy thing for a lot of people. And so you can do this in any way, shape, or form. You don't have to wait till you're a millionaire to produce jobs for people. You don't have to wait for that. You can just, even if you have extra time, and someone's looking for work, find them a job. That's finding them a job. Just say, hey, what are you looking for? What do you need? Okay, I'm going to schedule some appointments for you, or I'm going to schedule some things for you, and turn yourself into a headhunter, whatever. And then if that's the way to go and do it. And even if you do that once a month for one person, you've already gotten closer to your goal. You've already gotten closer to what you want to achieve with that. Says that I would love to become a nurse, and love to cook for people. Cooking makes me feel relaxed. Live to feed people. Okay, so if you want to become a nurse, if you haven't already had experiences with the health industry, then take a first aid course. Take a first aid course, or or become an EM. You don't have to go through school and years of this. Nurses work their asses off. And a lot of nurses are undervalued and underpaid. It's just like teachers. I think teachers and nurses, the people who have to do the bulk of the work, should get more pay. Honestly, it's just ridiculous that doctors make as much money as they do, and they pop in every few hours or every few days checking on people. I'm not saying that doctors are useful. I definitely have appreciation for, again, my uncle was a doctor. I know what they're capable of, but at the same time, I think that they're underpaid severely, especially after 2020. But take a first aid course, or learn how to learn some basic elemental health things, and then find people who don't know anything about their own health, or who aren't able to do as much for themselves, and offer to do some errands, or offer to help them to make their lives a little bit better by teaching them how to take better care of themselves. You don't have to become a nurse. You can already do it in one way, shape, or form. There are missions that go to other countries that will pay for your trip to the country, as long as you're going to do the work. There's ways of contributing in this world. You don't have to wait for an ideal situation or ideal scenario. So I would challenge you to take a first aid course, or get some sort of certification in basic aid, just so that you have one more step closer to that desire and meeting the calling within you. Okay. All right, guys, I am out of time, and I'm getting close to my hey, Michelle. Michelle. So here's a good example of it. Michelle is a perfect example of what I speak of. Michelle loves to make blankets, and she makes quilts. And what she has done so far is she has taken these picture panels. She'll take a picture and put it in fabric, and then she'll create a blanket for people. So she's already done this for family. She's already done this for people in her life who don't appreciate it. So she's done this for people. And like, for example, Roxy, my assistant, I know Roxy loves Iron Man and loves, Tony Stark and all that stuff. I don't really know much about it because I didn't watch the movies, but that's her thing. She loves it. And so Michelle is already looking. She showed me a picture of her making like an Iron Man or some sort of quilt or blanket that has this character on it. And I was like, oh my gosh, she would love that. But I was telling Michelle, like, if you enjoy making these blankets, keep making the blankets. There are people in old folks' home or in places who suffer from dementia or who are losing their memory. And I'm pretty sure that if you made a blanket with pictures of moments of their life or pictures of their family members with words that say brother, sister, so forth, just pictures on the blanket with these things so they can keep themselves warm. But when they wake up from their state and see these pictures, they can start to hopefully remember, or it will be a helping hand in the process of recalling some memory. So this is something that she's already really enjoyed doing, and she was trying to find another way to do it. And I said, why don't you donate to these places that you have elderly folk who are needing that memory help, who need to remind themselves of who they are. I have to remind myself of who I am every single day. Every single day I wake up, I am not really excited about being in physical form. I'm not really looking forward to dealing with reality. However, I woke up, which means I'm still here, which means I'm supposed to be here. And so I got to just do what I'm going to do here and get the most out of it I'm going to get the most out of. So I mosey my butt over. I get my first cup of coffee. I feed the cats. Those little activities remind me of who I am. Coming into my office and starting to read a book or going over some old material or looking at my space, looking at my picture back there, looking at this, those are reminders of who I am in form. And so when I see these things, they trigger old energy of who I choose to be. And so I immediately snap back into who I am. And so it helps me. So think of it in that way for people who are in an older, who are in a facility where they don't remember. They might need the help in remembering some things. And something like that would be priceless for them. And I'm sure, if you ever wanted to turn it into a business, because you're probably going to have to you're going to need money to pay for the material, just period. And if that's all you need money for, then charge a small fee or a small amount and just tell people this is what it's for, to buy the stuff to do it. But still, it's okay. Don't feel guilty because you want to use a passion and you want to help others. And if you have to get money for it, then so be it. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. You can do plenty of free things, and you have done plenty of free things, Michelle. So you don't have to feel guilty for that work. Okay. All right, guys. I love you all. Thank you so much for tuning in. I will be back next Wednesday, hopefully with a new setup, because I was supposed to have a new setup here. So I love